when we are switching from CAD to BIM, we have to start thinking about a lot of different questions. I'm sure some of these questions might have crossed your mind. Do I have to learn a new software? How complicated it is? What do I have to unlearn? What do you mean by a CAD mindset? All of these are very, very genuine questions. But the thing is that when we start adopting BIM, it's like learning a new language. So now, what do you mean by changing a mindset? So let's say it's like learning a new language in which, let's say you grew up speaking certain language, and then you move to another country and you want to adopt that another country's language. So what is the best way that we can fluent in that language? I think the best way is that we start thinking in that language. And that is where all the difference comes. Now, it's the same case with CAD. Most of us have grown up working in CAD. I've myself been a CAD user for a very, very long time. In fact, I was one of the early adopters of CAD in my peer group. And back in 2012, when I took my first Revit course, I thought, oh, I know Revit, I know BIM, and there it is. And it was, just I would say about 7-8 years ago when I started working with a design technology director at a very large Canadian corporation, I actually had to start thinking not about the software, but about the process. And that is how I know that there is a whole lot of mindset or a perspective change that needs to be taken care of even before we do start working in a new software. So we will go one by one to each of these changes that we need to adapt, and what do we need to unlearn when we are adopting them. So the first change is the perspective change. Now, when we are looking at a CAD platform, we are looking at a drawing board. We are looking at, if we give our best shot in CAD, this is what we will achieve. We will achieve a very well-laid set of drawings. We will achieve really good visualizations. We can use different softwares to achieve what we want to achieve. And if you can see in this picture right here at the bottom, this is a watercolor or a hand sketch, a beautiful building. But what else information does it give me? It does not tell me about the material. I know that there is something like a brown colored material on the facade, and then I can see maybe that's stucco, maybe the paving is concrete, but it does not give me more information than that. It is a beautiful picture to look at. My husband the other day said, you know what, I want a house like that, and that's perfectly okay. But when I'm switching to BIM, I'm not just looking at a well-laid drawing or a very nicely rendered 3D view. What I am looking at is a model that has ability to move from one platform to the other, transmit information, and use that information for analysis. Use that information for structural analysis, green building analysis, for solar studies, for calculating the loads. So that model has enough information that I can use it for analyzing. Also, that model, if I am gearing it towards having some augmented reality or a virtual reality platform, that model has capability to do that. And who doesn't want a 3D printing option? So there are a lot of softwares. I know SketchUp is one of those softwares. We can use those models for 3D printing. But what if everything could come out of one model? So we have to start thinking in a way that this is whatever I'm drawing, it's not just a 3D model. It's a repository of information. It's a repository of data, a data that can do different things, a data that can give me the results that I want, data that can be passed on from one consultant to the other, from one vendor to the other, from one manufacturer to the other, and create the whole process of design and construction and maintenance as a one uniform process. Next is the process change. Now, the thing is, how we've done our CAD is that initially we start with the conceptuals, we start with adding more details to it. Eventually, as we proceed in the project, we keep on adding stuff to it. Much like a top loading machine, in which right in the middle of the cycle, you can add more clothes if you want to wash, which is amazing. I really appreciate that. However, what happens is, initially, even if we have to put lesser hours, lesser work, and less effort to start and reach a certain level or a certain milestone in a project, what we have to do is, as the project advances, we need to add more hours to it. We need to add more people to it. We need to add more details to it, which means that now, let's say I added new people, I have to spend time to get those people up to speed with the project, where everything is, how we are doing what we are doing, and why we are doing what we are doing. All of that, which means that we started with literally zero or very little planning. And then because we keep on adding more stuff to it, there is room for errors, there are gaps, there is a lot of back and forth, there is a lot of wastage, energy that goes waste because things have to be redone. And today, Tom left the company and Martha came in his place, and Martha wants to do stuff her way, and there's nothing helping us to get this process streamlined. And just like we can see in this inverted pyramid, if we keep on working like this, it requires a very, very fine balance to keep my project standing up. And it takes a very little effort to make my project go down. So let's say there was a scope creep. Let's say there was any changes that happened at a later stage in the project. Believe me, there are chances of project crumbling down, the profits crumbling down, and of course, all of us stressing out. I'll give you a very personal example for this. So this is back in 2009, I believe. Yeah. So I was working on a project, a school building. Now, this school building was under a trust. So there was a trust that was maintaining all the money. Now, this school building wanted to extend their classrooms. So they wanted to add a new wing to their classrooms. Now, what happened that just when we had the last presentation, the final presentation with the board, and we gave them all the numbers, and it's not that these people were not on the whole design process. We were done with the complete set of drawings. Even we had gone down to extent of taking material takeoff. We were that close. And it was just one final presentation in front of the trust. And they said that, oh, you know what? We don't have budget to build 10 rooms. Can we make it to 8? Just imagine me and my business partner in that room. We are looking at breaking the ground in, let's say, 15 days, 20 days, and they want to change it. And back then, I used to think, oh, client is God. Client is your boss, and you have to do what you have to do. So in matter of 3 days, we had to rework all the plans, all the elevations, all the sections, create new 3D views. But you know what was worst of all? Creating new estimates and creating new specifications. That was the worst part. And you know, when did that happen? Just 2 days before I was going to take off for getting married. So just 2 days before my wedding, when I was supposed to take an off, I was in my room with my partner calculating how much cement and how much reinforcement needs to be cut down. So it's a personal example, but it's a perfect example that when a top loading process, how even one blow can shatter everything. On the other hand, when we are working on a BIM project, it's a front loading process. It's like you first carefully plan what you have to do. You carefully have to strategize even before you start. You open the software and you start doing your sketches and you start doing your conceptuals. What you have to do is plan for the project. You have to see, and BIM is designed that way. You cannot just open a software and start drawing it. You need to know what to use in it. It's not 2 lines and a hatch that makes a wall. It takes a real wall to make a real wall in a BIM software. So you need to know the thickness of the wall. And maybe you can defer some decisions at later on stages, but you do most of the work, you do most of the planning, you do most of the strategizing right at the start. So what happens is that when I have spent more time planning and strategizing and collecting data and designing a workflow, it means as the project advances, even if there are changes, even if anything happens, we still have lesser work to do, because we know that if we are in fix, this is what we need to do, or this is the course of process that we need to follow. Whenever we have reached to a significant level in the project, let's say towards the final, what I have seen in my experience is that we started with 10 people on the project, and there are only 2 or 3 people who are working on final submissions. There are only 2 or 3 people who are doing material takeoffs or anything that is towards the end of the project. And that's because we had a lot of planning in the start. And which means that if there is any scope creep, it can be handled in a better way. Also, if there was any errors, we have already counted for those errors, which unfortunately working in CAD does not give us. Third change is the coordination change. Now, this is my most favorite part of unlearning. Who has seen something like this? I really want you to type in your chat windows if you have seen a drawing something like this. Kind of drawing is a nightmare for anybody to read. Now, let's say if on a project, I have to coordinate between architecture and structure and mechanical and electrical at the same time. When I want to see who goes where is my HVAC duct and where is my column? Is my HVAC duct crossing a beam? If there is an electrical duct that is overlapping a beam or I'm pretty sure that all of us who are in this session have seen some or other kind of coordination issue. Now, and this is typical of a CAD process. And why? Because I don't know that this green line and this yellow line, are they hitting each other or are they overlapping each other? I don't know that is that the light fixture on my pavement or that's on the ceiling, and by mistake somebody drew it on the floor. So now, see, I can see people are typing stuff like, yes, we've done this and I don't want to see this again. So of course it's hard to read. It does require a lot of in-person coordination. And as we know, in situation like this today, when we are stuck in our houses, coordination like this is definitely going south. If I cannot go and meet my HVAC consultant and I'm on a Zoom call or I'm on a virtual call with my consultant, I'm trying to show them, oh, do you see that green line? What is it? I cannot read if it's a CH280 valve or it's a manhole. I can't see it. I can't read it properly. Now, and I can definitely not go and see them because we're stuck in our homes. So even if in an ideal scenario where we could go and meet our consultants, there still are going to be so many coordination errors. There are going to be so many clashes on site, which means more money, which means loss of time, and which means a mad client. But what we do in BIM is we do pre-construction clash detections. What we do is we virtually coordinate between disciplines. Now I don't have a 2D flat drawing where I can see that, oh, is this pipe hitting a duct or is it overlapping a duct? Is this crossing this concrete wall or is it cutting the concrete wall? I can literally go and see in my 3D view where everything is. I can demarcate it and I can then send it to the concerned disciplines. So I have worked in a multidisciplinary company in which I had to do a lot of this coordination. I had to bring a structural and a mechanical engineer in a room and ask them that, see, this is the problem, who's going to fix it? And then they know right away, oh, the pipe needs to move a foot above or a foot below or anything. And sometimes even just looking at this makes my decision so much easy, so much quicker, that I don't have to waste time in a back and forth. Now, of course, if in a situation like we are in today, I can show this virtually to my consultant. I can show this That see, I can be on a web call and I can tell them that this is what's happening. How are we fixing? And this, of course, saves time and money and effort. But what is it does most is that it has least number of clashes on site.